We're the best Cosmic Crucible defense teams in Marvel Strike Force.
No, we're not doing that. But seriously though, in today's video, guys, we're going to be talking about the best Cosmic Crucible defense teams here in Marvel Strike Force. We're going to talk about a top 6. We may have some honorable mentions here, but we're going to talk about these defensive teams and then also their counters as well, guys. So if you're ready for it, let's start right now. Right, so coming in at number 6 here, which is not necessarily a ranking. I'm just doing this based on the room, right? So if I say number 6, I'm talking about the corresponding room. So coming in here at number 6 is going to be the Wakandans that sits in that room 6, right? They're definitely the best team that you can throw on defense. The buffs work in their favor, the speed up, the more health, the flipping negative effects. I mean, they are the revive ones. I mean, they are definitely a formidable team. I have been clapped. My cheeks have been clapped multiple times by a massively big Black Panther. And the more players that are getting extra shards now for characters like Black Panther 1mm, I am starting to see where Black Panther 1mm is incredibly annoying and always just immediately deletes my absorbent man, regardless of whatever the situation is. So this team is incredibly strong. I do still see people run the old school Wakandan team too with Killmonger and M'Baku, but I'm starting to see more so of the entire War Dogs team here. Now, in terms of counter, Masters of Evil is definitely the best counter. But there have been some times where I've ran into some 1.2, 1.3 million Wakandan and War Dog characters, and it's been a dicey matchup, right? Even with the right counter there, Darkhold can still counter this team as well, but because of the negative resistance and speed and all that they recently got here in Cosmic Crucible, they're not necessarily as reliable, although a lot of players are still having a ton of success here using their Darkhold team, which of course then means that you can use your Masters of Evil team elsewhere. But yes, Wakandans definitely come in here as one of the top 4 or Cosmic Crucible defense teams in Marvel Strike Force. All right, and coming in at number 5 for room 5 is the Tangled Web Eternals team. I hate this team so much with a large passion in my heart. And I know a lot of you do too, because seriously, this team is so strong, man. And why would anybody want to give Eternals the opportunity to revive once? After whenever their mechanic that you get them under 50%, they go and heal themselves anyways. Why would anybody want to do that with the most annoying Cosmic Crucible character in Spider Weaver? I don't know why anybody would want to do that. Now, I am seeing a lot of people take out Spider-Man Noir and they're throwing in Emma here. So kind of that makes it a little bit trickier, I guess. But in terms of like the counter that I typically tend to use against this is Tangled Web with Spider-Man 2099, Weaver. I usually use Emma, Hela, and then Zombie Iron Man. So technically it's like Tangled Undying that you're using to counter this team. And that's the most reliable counter that I've found so far. Now, I've seen other players, I don't want to say I've found, sorry, that was something that was definitely stolen in terms of the counter. But in terms of what I've seen other people use here, I've seen APOC hold, which that's Darkhold with Apocalypse. I don't know if I would trust that counter. It gets very dicey if RNG goes wrong. And then there's also people who are just like, you know what, bro, I'm not trying to one-shot this crap. I am just going to sack it and then come in with like a Dorm Omega Red Apocalypse counter to try to get rid of this team here. But seriously, this team is definitely the best defensive team. Now, if you don't want to go with this team on defense because maybe you want to use them on offense, I completely understand that. But I definitely want to say, like, because this is a top defensive Crucible team list, that's definitely the reason why they're showing up here as number 5 on this list. All right, and showing up as number 4 in room number 4 is the Unlimited X-Men team. So if you saw my recent video, I talked about top Crucible offense teams. Well, yeah, they're also a top Crucible defense team as well. I mean, they're very tricky to play if you don't have the right comps, especially if you have to sort of like try to figure out, okay, what am I going to use against Tangled Web Eternals? What I got to use X against Wakandans and War Dogs. I got to use this against some other teams. Like Unlimited can definitely pose a tough challenge for a lot of players. They were built for Cosmic Crucible, right? They're a horseman team, so they're definitely strong in this game mode here. You got to be careful if there's a big old Gambit. I know that I've gotten a lot of victories because of my 7-star Gambit. Rogue, of course, with the ability block, the trauma, the stun. Dazzler can flip, positive effect, negative effects into positive effects. Sunfire, if you let them get to turn 2, the matchup is usually over at that particular time. So there's a lot of really interesting things that go on here. And of course, they do get the revive, although because they're only reviving with very small health, it's usually not largely impactful, but it can still be a little bit of a problem here if you don't take care of them in the right way. But this team is definitely very strong in terms of counters that I've seen for the Unlimited X-Men team here. I've seen what I've been using, I saw somebody else use here, and I've been using them against this team is Apocalypse, Eternals, and then Kestrel. Because Apocalypse removes the safeguard off of them, that makes the matchup significantly easier. You can use Icarus to then flip their positive effects into negative effects. And then of course, you start getting Kestrel to pay. Hopefully you want to be able to get your Kestrel to one shot and delete their Gambit, so that then you can kind of start working and mowing down the rest of the characters here. But that's been the most reliable counter that I've seen. I've also seen people use Gamma Dorm, and Gamma Dorm actually does really well against them too. So those are actually two fairly good reliable counters that are there. There's also another comp that I don't really trust as much, but I've seen people use it with success, but it also can get very dicey if, let's say, Captain Sam gets ability block. It is Dorm, Captain Sam, Kestrel, Fury, and then Shang-Chi. That has been what I've seen people use here against it. It works. It's just uber dicey if you don't do it the right way. So for me personally, Unlimited definitely has to come in here because you gotta really select what you're gonna use against this team. All right, and coming in at number 3 here is going to be the Gamma team. And wow, the more players that are building up this Gamma team, I'm starting to see some beefy Gamma teams now, like 1.3 mil, 1.2 mil Gamma teams. Where I'm at, it is just absurd to be able to go up against this team here. Red Hulk is probably one of the scariest characters I've ever fought in Marvel Strike Force. Like, I thought Dorm was the problem, but really Red Hulk with the battlefield effect, I don't know, it makes me cringe a little bit, right? Or makes you squirm a little bit if I look at it from that perspective. But yeah, this team is very strong. You gotta be very careful about making sure, especially depending on where Red Hulk is placed, which is usually smushed right between She-Hulk and Hulk. You got to be very careful, how that matchup goes here. Just because it's just such a strong, powerful team. Now, in terms of counters, Dorm mirror matching it, but using Dorm Gamma, I've found to be successful as well. Can also, you can actually use Dorm Gamma on defense, and then that also becomes a little bit of a conundrum. I've also used the Star-Lord, Doom, Omega Red, and Red Guardian comp. So putting Red Guardian at the very end, putting Doom on the other side next to Star-Lord. Of course, Red Hulk is going to attack Red Guardian, whoever is at that side. And then, of course, throwing Omega Red here in the middle, and then somebody next to Red Guardian, probably maybe like Silver Samurai, somebody like that can maybe come back with a stun or something like that for you there. But the idea here is to get Star-Lord to give ability energy to Doom, so that on turn 1, when Doom takes a turn, that he's going to be able to ult, and then you're kind of working your way down with Red Hulk here. I'm also seeing as well, which is something that I recommended yesterday on offense, is the New Warriors, because I saw Dorky Dad, and I think Pathfinder Gaming use New Warriors, Doom, and Red Guardian. That's something that I have used as well with success too against this Gamma team. So they are very good. You have to be very careful about how you fight them. They're very tricky, especially the bigger that players are building them now because of APOC and getting that Horseman team. This team definitely is scary to go against here. But if you use the right counters, and even if you use the right counters, by the way, it can still go awry depending on what the RNG is. If you make like one small mistake, like you could ultimately 100% lose that matchup. I've seen some teams with big She-Hulks, and that's the reason why they're winning these matchups, even after you take out Red Hulk too. So even though after you take out Red Hulk, the rest of the team can still be very, 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 very powerful too. But definitely one of the top defensive teams in Crucible. All right, and coming in at number 2 here is anything basically with Apocalypse in terms of Horseman Apocalypse teams. So if you have Darkhold, if you have APOC hold, if you have Vet Seed hold or Seed hold, whichever, or APOC Seed, like whatever the case is, any Horseman team with Apocalypse is definitely a very strong team. I've seen people use Death Seed against Death Seed Apocalypse against the limited teams. this team is strong on defense as well. Now, primarily, I've seen a lot of people who will probably just mirror match this or use unlimited with APOC as well to try to beat these teams. Usually, I've seen a lot of people use APOC with unlimited, or maybe they'll use Darkhold with APOC as well. Pretty much basically like what you're kind of just mirror matching this. But APOC, definitely, like I said, in Cosmic Crucible, I think he has a little bit more impact. I mean, yes, in Arena, he's very strong, but I feel like the secondary impact has been largely a part of Cosmic Crucible. So he kind of changes the game, right? I mean, being able to strip Safeguard, which a lot of teams tend to have, like Unlimited, like Darkhold, they get Safeguard on spawn, so you're able to use APOC to kind of remove those. You're also able to get the ability block and throwing up the immunity and the Safeguard, right? And then of course the trauma on turn 3. So APOC changes the matchups, but then you're also kind of teaming it up with a team like Dead Sea, where they're throwing out a lot of bleeds. You're getting the AoE blind from a character like Magneto. I mean, you're getting an insane amount of damage from Archangel. So there's a lot of really good things that APOC just kind of enhances what other teams are able to do anyways. And the Horseman teams typically tend to be one of the teams that I do see him on often when it comes to defense. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, if you don't care about using them specifically on offense, then there is a place as well for him here on defense. So that's the reason why he's here. So APOC, Darkhold, APOC, Dead Sea, typically that's what I see him on in terms of defense, are very, very strong teams here in Cosmic Crucible, especially for like your 1 and your 2 slots in your matchups. All right, and coming in at number 1 here, once again, not the best team, but one for room 1, are the Young Avengers here. And this is one of my favorite teams in Marvel Strike Force that I've still been using on defense as well. And I'm still seeing a lot of players. I feel like every single Crucible matchup, I see Young Avengers on defense at least once, right? Like every single weekend, there's at least 2 players that have Young Avengers on defense. Maybe that's just kind of where I'm at. But I'm still even seeing it in other people's matchups as well. But this team is very strong. I mean, there's so much you got to be careful with, right? Kate Bishop is annoying because of her pings. If you get anybody under 50% with throwing out the slow, throwing out the blinds, you got to be careful with Squirrel Girl. So Squirrel Girl can continue to fill her speed bar if you're getting characters below. So you really got to go in here with a lot of characters that have ability block. You have to then try not to get characters too low, because in the wrong character to get a blind on them. So you have to be really smart about how you go against this team. And because you have to be so careful with what you use against other teams, if you're facing Tangled Web, if you're facing on defense, if you're facing those War Dogs, Gamer teams, Horseman, Apocalypse teams, when you throw in a team here like Young Avengers, it just complicates things, because some of those things that you would use in those other rooms are also things that maybe you could probably benefit from using here against Young Avengers as well. But what I do see, there's a lot more counters that are there. Usually it's a lot of hybrid counters I'm seeing, though. It's like Omega Red with Undying, hybrid. I'm seeing Weapon X with like Silver Surfer. I'm seeing, I think Dorky Dad did a video with like Taskmaster, Undying, Surfer, and Omega Red. I still see people use A-Force Doom against this team as well. It works, right? A-Force Doom is tricky, though, because if Doom doesn't get ability energy, then like the matchup is effed, right? Like you are done at that point in time, right? So because they could start literally mowing down the rest of your characters, and then so it can get very, 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 very dicey. But yeah, I think for the sake of it being not like it's the best defense team, but just because you have to use so many things against other defense teams, and then you kind of throw in this wrinkle of Young Avengers, it can definitely make it very interesting, especially considering that a lot of players have really invested high into Young Avengers because of the Rogue Scourge. It can make it even that much more challenges as well. So definitely show up on this list. Now, in terms of other teams there we can talk about, I'll kind of back out gear. There was one other team I put on the list, which was Infinity Watch. I am starting to see this more on defense now. So that's something that you can also use too. I'm still seeing people use people are even building up there. I'm still seeing people use Bionic Avengers on defense. I'm starting to see people now put in Rebirth on defense too, which can be a little tricky, especially because you're like any team that you build up really high, right? That's a raid team, can always kind of be a little bit of a tricky matchup because of what you have to use in these other rooms. So it can get kind of interesting depending on where you are, because you're building these raid teams really high for a purpose. And then of course they throw that wrinkle in there after you've already been exhausted by these other top teams, and then have to face those teams. So listen, Let me know what your thoughts are here on this list. What do you use on defense, right? Leave it in the comments. I want to know. Let me know if you don't like some of the teams that I talked about here, or if there are different variations of teams that you use on defense. I don't want to encourage turtling by any means, but just talking about the best ones that I see out there on a regular weekly basis. But just appreciate you watching the video here. Like and subscribe for more content on the channel. Hit the notification bell so that you know when the videos do go live. And then until next, actually check out the links that are down below in the description as well. Until next time, guys, I'll be blessed. I'll be safe.